So I was grounded one time as a teenager. Um, so it was hot, it was summertime, and I was a teenager, obviously, and I wanted to watch a movie on my big, clunky, thick laptop. But the problem was it was really hot in my room, and so I had this idea of sitting on the porch swing out front and watching a movie. But the problem with that, of course, was that my computer didn't hold a charge very well. And so I had this idea of popping the screen out of my window and running the charger through my window to the porch swing so I could watch my movie. And watched the movie, went back inside, put everything away, but forgot to put the screen back, didn't think anything of it. And of course, my parents, being parents of a teenager, assumed that I was sneaking out. And no amount of reason or explanation seemed to win them back. And honestly, now in hindsight, as a parent myself, I don't know that I would have been very convincible on that either. But what I remember from that was the feeling of my parents not necessarily believing me. And then they actually went out of town, and my grandmother was staying with us for a while, and she kept such a tight watch on me the whole time they were gone, which I was not used to because I was allowed a lot of freedom as a teenager. And just feeling that like the walls closing in around me because I made this one choice. And in my 10 years working with horses, one thing that horses have taught me about humans is that what we don't understand or what we fear, we try to control. And when we try to control it, it usually ends up backfiring and making it worse. Hi, I'm Ruby. I'm a whole horsemanship trainer, and I'm on a mission to help you and your horse to develop a deeper bond and better connection through whole horsemanship practices and groundwork and training principles, as well as to enjoy more of the slog of the day-to-day, because let's face it, that's where we find ourselves most of the time. We are starting off a new video series where I'm just talking about some of the things that horses have taught me about humans, and I'm really excited for this. And this one really sticks out in my mind because I really think this is something I see so frequently. Even just actually a few days ago, I had a student who asked me if your horse bolts is the safest thing to do an emergency dismount. And I responded and said, actually, no, because when you're going that fast, you don't want to be hitting the ground if you can help it. But what you should do is just remember that people gallop horses all the time for fun. And so just tell your body, tell your mind, oh, haha, I meant to do that, meant to gallop fast. And instead of trying to like force your horse down or force yourself off your horse, instead of trying to ratchet down and control more, just let yourself go with it a little bit and then bring your horse down in a controlled and slow, so there's that word control again, and a more slow and what ends up being more controlled because it's you're moving in the rhythm with your horse and you're working together to come back down from a faster pace. If you have a horse that spooks frequently, I do have a video about that, about building confidence and helping your horse to build more trust in you, and I would highly recommend checking that out. But another kind of example is when we see something that we think our horse is going to be afraid of and we tense up. So I used to work with this really lovely woman, and she had a really lovely mare, and they were starting to go out on trail rides, and the woman was convinced that her horse was going to be afraid of bikes on the trail. And the funny thing is, the horse very rarely actually showed fear of the bikes first, but once the woman saw a bike coming, she would get nervous and tense up and clamp down, and that would cause her horse to get nervous in reaction, which was just a really interesting dynamic to watch kind of unfolding from the outside. And I definitely think I'm also guilty of this. Like, I very frequently, when I'm riding a young horse, I can see something coming sometimes before the young horse can see it coming. And whenever I feel that, my first instinct is sometimes to clamp down and try to control the horse so that they don't sort of explode. But again, what that really ends up doing is sending the horse the message that I'm nervous, I'm insecure, and so then they end up also feeling that way, and sometimes the reaction ends up being worse. So the better thing to do in that situation is to take a deep breath and, as objectively as you can, look at your horse's body language and look at what they're presenting to you. And from there, then you can sort of determine, like, is this really something that I need to be reacting to? Is this something that we need to come up with a plan? And you're always going to make a better plan when you're in a place of calm and relaxation than when you're already in an elevated sort of fight or flight state. So that's a really, really important one. And if there is something that you find your horse consistently reacts to, like let's say bikes, you can use a sacking out process, which I also have a whole video on, that can help you to introduce that scary object to your horse in a way that is safe, and to, again, build your horse's trust in you and make you feel like the safe place and the determining factor, so your horse will look to you to decide, are we safe or are we in danger? So when you feel this desire to try to ratchet down and control more what we're afraid of, I would challenge you instead to try to take a deep breath, to calm yourself, and try to put yourself in the position of the leader that your horse needs you to be in that moment. If you want more resources on how to be that person for your horse, definitely check out this video. And until next time, make sure to hug your horse for me.